Welcome back, Glenn.
Hey, Michelle, it's good to see you again for another one of our little insightful sessions, right? We're delving into another topic today.
Yes. So our topic is leading in a crisis. And that's what we have right now, isn't it, Glenn? In fact, our crisis is unprecedented. So can you please shed some light on what leaders need to know to best navigate their way through this for an optimal experience and outcome?
This is a big topic, Michelle. I mean, this is really fundamental, leadership, and what I'm calling conscious leadership now. In fact, what I'm calling quantum conscious leadership, because as you know, I've renamed my leadership program, and I'm now calling it quantum conscious leadership. And we're not going to talk about that today. In fact, we've got a session in the collective tonight where I'll be talking a little bit more about that. But today's topic is, if you're a leader, and I think every single one of us on planet Earth is a leader. And if we're not leading our own lives first, then, we're in a bit of trouble, aren't we? Because if we're not leading our own lives as a leader, then we're being led by somebody. And my question to people would be, why would you let that happen? You need to be in charge of your own life. So this is for everybody, but also for those leaders who are leading families, leaders leading communities, leading organizations, leading collectives of people. And so it doesn't really matter. I kind of look at somebody and say, if you're leading your own life, you're a leader. So let's kind of start from that place first. And you mentioned an unprecedented crisis. We are, Michelle. This is humanity as we know it has never seen anything like this before. Unprecedented confusion, unprecedented uncertainty, unprecedented insecurity, struggle. And the big one, of course, is fear. There's an enormous amount of fear on this planet at the moment in every facet of society, in every country, everywhere. And so, the work that I do, as you know, Michelle, is really to rise people out of this state of fear to be conscious leaders that, are not in that energetic state. They rise their energetic state up out of those low vibrational states. So we're going to talk a bit about that today. And so fear is causing leaders to be stunned into inaction, to potentially make things worse or to lose it all. And there's, I'm going to talk about that in a moment. A lot of leaders are losing it all. And that's because they're not in the frame of mind to make the correct decisions. And fear is not a frame of mind to make decisions. So I want to talk about that just quickly and revisit this. I know I've mentioned this before, but when you go into fear, you basically go into your primal brain, or what they also call the reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain is all about fight, freeze, and flight responses. It's all about protection and safety. And you've basically disengaged your prefrontal cortex, which is what they call the executive function of your mind, where you really can think and you can make decisions and you can create plans and, you can stay in a calm and resourceful state and work your way through, navigate your way through challenges in a much higher vibrational state. But when you're in fear and you're in that primal brain, you're in a very low vibrational state that is basically in fight, freeze, or flight. And so that's not the place to be. And so the first thing I would say is that really conscious leaders, truly great leaders, are never exist in fear. They know how to manage fear and they know how to stay out of fear. So that they can actually be great leaders and make much better decisions. And so my view is kind of looking around the world at the moment, looking in every facet of society, whether it be politics or religion or in business, pretty much everywhere. We have a significant crisis in leadership, Michelle. I mean, we're not really in a state where leaders are doing the kinds of things that are positive, that are high vibrational, that represent growth. And, let's take a minute to kind of look at the state of the nation at the moment, the state of the world, at the moment. And by the way, I've done a bit of research and got the latest figures I possibly can. It's not to say the figures I've got are true figures, by the way, because I would question them. And what I've found is not pretty, Michelle. It's really not. The GDP for the US in 2021, for example, was 6%. In 2023, at the beginning of this year, it's quoted as 2.7%. This is a massive decrease in productivity in that country alone. And I would say that that's pretty much the case in most countries, maybe a couple it's not. Recorded inflation figures, and I say recorded, I don't think these figures are true. In 2019, 1.6% inflation, and now is recorded in early 23 as 7%. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there, a lot of business experts who would say it's probably double that, if not more. Inflation is at the moment, because all you've got to do is look around, go to the supermarket and look at what you're paying now for the same items that you bought 2 or 3 years ago, and you'll see that the prices are up 20%, sometimes 30%. It's ridiculous what's going on. The other thing that I've noticed is that business failure rates are massive at the moment, up 57% in the fourth quarter of 2022 on the previous year. Now, this is nearly 60% business failure rates are up. And when you look at inflation rates and when you look at productivity rates and you look at everything else that's going on in the world is not really in a state that is conducive to running a great business. And also, one of the other statistics I pulled out was the debt figures. Now, the US has a population of 332 million, but it has a debt of $30.9 trillion. That's nearly $31 trillion in debt. Now, you've got to ask yourself, how is it possible that they can pay that back? Well, my answer is it's not possible. They'll never pay it back, right? Now, Japan has 125 million people, 9.2 trillion. Italy, 60 million people, 2.6 trillion. Australia, the country we come from, 27 million, $1 trillion we have in debt. Now, how is it possible for 27 million people that we're $1 trillion in debt? And, I want to give you a benchmark figure to compare all these guys against, and that's Russia. Now, Russia has 146 million people, but they're only $436 billion in debt. And so if we draw a comparison between Australia and Russia, Australia has 19% of Russia's population, but more than twice their debt. Don't you think that's extraordinary, Michelle?
Doesn't make sense, Glenn.
Well, when you look at, I kind of look at this and go, well, where does the buck stop for this, right? Who's really responsible? And from my point of view, there's only, I can put it down to one group of people, and that is the leaders. The leaders of the country, the leaders of, who are handling, the economy. Leaders who are running corporations, leaders who are running businesses, leaders who are running everything. This is a leadership problem. I mean, I just can't think of anybody else to look at and say, are you doing a great job? And the answer is, for the most part, the vast majority of leaders are not doing a great job. I mean, look at those statistics. This is a planet that is absolutely crashing systematically in every corner of society, everywhere we look, and it's going down fast. I mean, this ship is going down like the Titanic. And so it really is a fundamental leadership problem. And so what we want to do today is we want to kind of look at that and say, what are we going to do about that? What's my insights around that? And, I do have some insights in leadership because I have been a leader for over 30 years. I've been the CEO of 4 multi-million-dollar companies. I've basically coached leaders for the last 20 years how to be better leaders, and that's, of course, my key focus. As you know, Michelle, right now is how to help people to be vastly better leaders, conscious leaders, quantum conscious leaders, of themselves, of their family, of their community, of their business, of every aspect of their life. It's really important now, and probably I don't think anything's more important, to be honest, Michelle, than people rising up and becoming leaders, and knowing how to do that. And so I'm going to start today with my definition of leadership. This is my definition. You're not going to find it anywhere else in any book anywhere, because most of the definitions that I read are definitions that I would look at and I just laugh at. Actually, you've got to be kidding me. You think that's a leader? I don't think so. Anyway, it's not me being sarcastic or patronizing. It's just kind of looking at it and saying, man, it's so old world. And of course, the old world is collapsing, and so those definitions of leadership for an old world are no longer relevant. They no longer apply. And so my definition of leadership starts with the idea of being a conscious leader, and I'm going to talk more around that as we go forward. But conscious leaders ignite passion and inspire people to harmoniously discover and realize their true higher self and potential around a shared vision. Now, let me say that again, because this is really important. Conscious leaders ignite passion and inspire people. Don't tell them what to do. They inspire them, ignite passion in them to harmoniously discover and realize their true higher self and potential around a shared vision. And so I want people to think about that and kind of analyze that statement for a moment. You won't find that definition anywhere else. It's taken me a long time to kind of come to that. And so it's this idea, if you start looking at some of the, key words: igniting passion, inspiring people, harmony, discovery of and realization of true higher self and potential. As you know, that's the focus of my work, Michelle. And around this idea of a shared vision, which means that, these conscious leaders, number one, are visionary. Number one, they're visionary people. And what they do is develop visionary organizations, which is this whole idea of shared vision. And so it's a whole bunch of individuals who know and understand their personal vision and purpose and unique higher identity. And then they're rallying around a shared vision in the collective, the organization. And that's what really creates something that is magical. To me, that's what alchemy is really all about. And so I want to kind of go to one of my favorite authors, a guy by the name of Dr. Daniel Goleman, who is a psychologist, but he's on the good side of psychology. And he's written numerous books, bestsellers on, leadership. One of my favorites is Emotional Intelligence. And there's a book called Focus. And then there's a book called Resonant Leadership. Resonant. Now we're talking about energy again. We're talking about emotions again. And I got a quote from him which said that people perform reluctantly or not at all under leaders who exercise authority, control, power, and fear. Now, what does that sound like? Does that sound like the world we currently live in? Pretty much does, doesn't it?
It does.
So people perform reluctantly under those people. People do not really like to be slaves. They really don't like to have to conform. They really don't like this command and control leadership style, which is the predominant style. And I'm going to talk about leadership styles as we go through this, and it's kind of one of the least effective styles. But I'm going to shed some light on that as well. However, leaders who work with positive emotions, and that's what I mean by positive emotions, is this idea of higher vibrational energy. So whenever you hear me say the word emotions, just think about energy as well, because I talk a lot about energy, and that's the quantum factor, right? And so leaders who work with positive emotions, who resonate, that's this attunement. This is people attuning together and are able to unfold their true potential in everyone they lead. So that's what Daniel Goleman talked about. And so the other thing I said about conscious leaders is that conscious leaders have their own personal vision. So they develop a personal vision first and foremost, which means conscious leaders are visionary leaders, and visionary leaders lead visionary organizations. And so I'm going to go to some research by Collins and Porras here in this one of their books, Good to Great, which was a best-selling book. Now, what they did in this book was they did some research into about 1,100 companies, I think since 1926 through to probably the mid-2000s. Now, that's a massive sample size. And what they found was this. This is one of the big quotes from this massive body of research, and that is that visionary leaders have outperformed all others by a factor of 15. That's a multiple of 15 on the stock exchange since 2026. So to be a visionary leader, of course, you're going to run a visionary company. And so this means that visionary companies have outperformed all others by a factor of 15, but they need to have visionary leaders. And so now we're back to this conscious leader. And one of the key characteristics of a conscious leader is to be visionary, which means you need to know what your vision is, your personal vision. And so that's really important, Michelle. This is a big point that, I kind of harp on this quite often. But, I would challenge people to sit back who are watching this and say, what is my vision? What's my personal vision? And if you can't articulate your personal vision in 6 to 8 words that you never change, that are absolutely, are true to you, that is your true higher vision, then you need to do that work. I would challenge you to do that work because it is just absolutely crucial to know and understand your personal vision first and foremost, and then, of course, your core purpose. And so these are the things that really rise you out of all this insecurity, uncertainty, and fear, and out of this lower vibrational energy and into a much higher place where you can consciously evaluate where you are, who you are, why you're here, and how to best navigate your way forward. So it really all begins with the vision. And so now let's get back to this idea of conscious leaders. Conscious leaders resonate. And that just doesn't stem from, higher emotional, energetic vibrations, but the ability to say the right thing, Michelle. Saying the right thing, of course, is important, but really, I believe that great cultures, whether it be a family or a collective of people of any kind, if that's a business or whatever, they have a tendency to be built around the vibrational energies of leaders, not so much what they say, although what they say is also energy, so it's also important. But those two things are important, but there's also a whole set of kind of coordinated activities that comprise particular leadership styles, right? And so now I want to start talking about leadership styles. And this is really insightful stuff. Not many people talk about this. And so there are 4 kind of key leadership styles, Michelle, that create resonance, that are multiplying, that positively resonate. And there's 2 leadership styles that create dissonance. Now that's negative resonance. Dissonance is negative resonance. And these styles are basically diminishing. So let's just have a look at these styles. Now, the first resonant leadership style is the visionary style. Now, here we are back to vision again. Mm-hmm. And so the first resonant leadership style is a visionary style. Now, what comprises visionary leaders? I'm just going to kind of take you through, a few insights here. Well, these visionary leaders are proven in massive amounts of research to strongly drive the emotional climate upward. And this, of course, transforms the spirit of the organization on many levels, right? Leaders that clearly and concisely articulate where the team is going, but not how to get there. Now, this is really important, where the team is going, what's the big why, because the vision is the why. But they don't dictate to people how to get there. What they do is they empower people to take up the responsibility to create, to innovate, to experiment, to take calculated risks. Now, this, of course, frees the leader to lead. And it's, gets away from that old cliche, if you want it done properly, you do it yourself. That is absolute rubbish. I mean, it can't be done, can it, Michelle? There's not enough time in the day. And so this idea that leaders articulate the vision. And, I want to talk about this for a minute, because this idea of articulating the vision, in my mind, is that you tell stories. Now, leaders are great storytellers. They know how to tell a story around the vision of the company that really engages people. Because I've got to tell you, it's the stories that create the emotional engagement, the emotional excitement. And when you emotionally engage people, that's when you are rising that energetic level. But also, neuroscience, Michelle, has proven that people remember more clearly and with greater speed and accuracy an emotionally charged event, right? Now, neuroscience has proven this. And so what is an emotionally charged event? A great story. People love great stories. They get emotionally engaged in them. And so great leaders are great storytellers around the vision. And so, and when they're telling these stories, they're not telling the same old story all the time. They're telling the story in different ways, maybe using different metaphors or similes or different examples, or they can make this stuff up, right? It doesn't really matter. But what they're doing is using kind of emotionally charged stories and mental pictures, movies for the mind that really engage people emotionally around the vision, around why they actually choose to belong to this organization. And so when people know the big picture, when they know the why, when they know, the vision of the company, it provides them with clarity. And as a result, they deeply understand why they're there and what is expected of them and where they're going. And so everybody that has a sense of working towards a shared vision and goals, this builds massive commitment and belonging. And this is a big thing, Michelle. It builds belonging. So the vision and the core purpose offers people a unique reason for connecting with an organization in a way that is massively emotional. And it's really, and remember, I'm saying emotions are energy. They're engaging, they're resonating energetically in a way that is really powerful. Now, what's it going to do for the organization? Well, it's going to help the organization to create massive improvements, right? I mean, everybody's there. They're working, they're resonating in harmony, and they're empowered, inspired to do their best work, right? I mean, they're not told
and happy.
And happy.
And happy, yeah.
There's massive correlations, we know from psychology, a lot of the work in psychology, there's massive correlations between, happiness and productivity. In fact, I seem to remember that every 1% increase in happiness represents a 2% increase in service culture and profit. And so, there's a direct correlation between people that are really enjoying themselves, that know and understand the vision of an organization, a collective, and are inspired and empowered to do their best work. And so there it is. The first leadership style is the visionary style, and I'm kind of hoping that people are getting a sense that that is crucial, right? Now, the second leadership style, the second of the resonant leadership styles, is the coaching-based style. Now, the coaching-based style is really when the leaders kind of really focus on the personal development of people rather than task accomplishment. Now, this elicits, again, really positive emotional responses in people, and you get better results as a result. And so, irrespective of the other styles, my kind of view has always been that there should be an element in the leadership style where they kind of move into a coaching-based style when it's required. So I want you to start thinking about these leadership styles. We've started with visionary, we're now moving on to coaching as kind of tools in the toolkit of great leaders, where they know all these styles and they can kind of pick and choose styles for the various situations. And so there may be some situations where you say, I'm going to go into the vision in this situation. I'm going to be truly visionary. Or there may be a situation where you say, now I've got to go into the coaching-based style and I've got to work on how I can develop this person in a way where in their current role they can do far better. Now, it's not me telling them what to do. It's me inspiring them to work out how they can navigate their way through that role to get the best
Big
potential,
difference.
the best outcomes, right? And so this is the coaching-based style, is when the leader shows a genuine interest in their people rather than simply seeing them as bodies to get the job done. And what's the current, the collapsing system? Well, that mostly comprised of command and control leaders who just see people simply as bodies to get a job done. I mean, if you can't do it, I'll get rid of you and I'll get somebody else.
Yeah.
And so, this coaching-based style is about establishing rapport. It's about having, kind of more intimate conversations that kind of get to know you, and explores the person's life, their dreams, their goals, and their career hopes, and then provides them with support and guidance on how to actually fulfill those dreams, goals, and career hopes. So that's the coaching-based style there, Michelle.
That it also reduce the sickies for sure. The days off, because people want to be there. It has a great vibration, and they feel uplifted when they go to work. So who wouldn't want to be there?
This is a good point that you raise here, Michelle. There's two key statistics that I used to look at quite often, and one is called presenteeism. Now, presenteeism, people may not have heard about that, but what that really means is that people are at work, and are they performing or are they doing the minimal amount? Now, presenteeism studies really kind of focus in on whether people are just there doing the absolute minimal amount to keep their job. So that's not engaged people, is it really? That's not people who know and understand the vision and share the vision. That's not people who are experiencing the joy of a coaching-based leader who's helping them to develop and inspiring them to find better ways to do their job. And so presenteeism in command and control organizations is a very high statistic. And that means that people are at the job, but doing the absolute minimum to get paid. Now, there's another statistic, and that's called absenteeism, which you just referred to, which is people taking time off work, saying they're sick, but they're not sick. And so absenteeism is, rife in today's world where people are taking sickies. And, when I was the chief executive of organizations, I used to say to my CFO, what's the absenteeism rate and what days is it happening? And so when I find out it's mostly happening Monday and Friday, I mean, it's people taking long weekends. These people are not sick. They just don't want to be at work. And so whose responsibility is that? Should I blame the people taking the days off? Absolutely not. It's my responsibility as a leader to provide them with a vision that engages them, that resonates with them, so they don't want to take those sicky days, right? They don't want, I'm reducing that absenteeism rate.